17 Emmy nominations for Fosse Verdon, and two of them, it takes actually two people to to bring the music of Bob Fosse and Gwen Verdon, Stephen Gizicki and Alex Lacamoire, both Emmy nominated. And I want to just, first of all, for the viewing public, and Steve, I'll ask you, what is the difference between music direction and music supervision? Because the music supervision title is fairly recent, at the Emmys at least. So how would you explain that to people?
Most people think of music supervisors as the ones that pick the songs. I mean, that's sort of the traditional way of thinking about it. But on a show like Fosse Verdon, it's overseeing all steps of the process. And, sometimes I compare it to being like a line producer or a stage manager for the production. And so I sort of make sure all the parts keep moving, make sure we stay on budget and on schedule. And, obviously, yes, I do pick the songs that we hear on radios and other source material, but really it's executing the vision is really what the job is. And overseeing the people that execute that vision, such as, and working with Alex, music director is that's the person that actually creates it, that actually is behind the boards, is, putting pen to paper and figuring out the orchestrations, or in the case of the magical Pippin episode, constructing that epic, crazy medley at the end. So Alex is more the musical genius, and I give him the tools that he needs to make it happen. And Alex also froze, by the way. Oh, there you are. Now you're back.
So basically, are you saying, Stephen, you're kind of like the puppet master of this whole thing?
If you would like to call it that, sure, why not?
Steve is definitely on top.
So, Alex, this coming to you, obviously you had a history with Thomas Kail and Lin-Manuel Miranda, obviously. So what was the thing that when they said, Fosse Verdon, did they come to you with this, and what was your immediate response when they asked you?
My immediate response was yes, because anytime you get invited to the party with geniuses like those, you want to be involved, because it's going to be something of high quality and something that's going to be a lot of fun to be a part of. Especially knowing that Annie Blankenbuehler was going to be choreographing, especially knowing that Stephen Levinson was going to be involved with the script writing. It was a no-brainer as far as I was concerned, and I had been a fan of Fosse for a very long time. I knew I was obsessed with Pippin growing up, and I've always been drawn to his style and his choreography and his stagecraft. So, and through this process, I learned a lot more about Gwen Verdon, who I was I had learned about obviously by reading biography, but knowing how they intersected and how they really fed off of each other, and that just made for what seemed like a great dramatic story to tell. Because I remember even in the early days, when they were getting together about the show and what direction it was going to go, it was very Fosse-centric, but then they found a way to bring Gwen into it, and all of a sudden, a lot of questions got answered in terms of what was the story that we wanted to tell, and it just made for very interesting to have different points of views, to have that real sense of conflict between the two of them, and have those two stories go in parallel and go apart and come back in again. So all of that was a draw, and all of that was something I was very game for.
So one of the things that strikes me, and Steve brought this up earlier, that Pippin sequence during the Glory episode of that sequence of the awards thing. So how do you two work together to turn that into something that's more than just style and flash, that the music really serves that particular moment? Because I feel like the best part about that sequence is that the music's there, and yet it fits so well tonally with what's happening. So how does a process like that, how do you two work together on that sort of thing?
Steve, you want to take this, or?
Yeah, the first thing that I do is I get the rights to all those songs, which was complicated. And as I don't know that the audience maybe noticed or not, but every bit of music in that episode comes from Pippin, which was a unique challenge in just acquiring the rights and negotiating with Stephen Schwartz's team, but also Alex reinterpreting all these Pippin themes to fit the moment. It's like doing a punk rock version of Simple Joys or something, for example. But when it came to that, the medley, we just that started with the written page and with Alex, sort of figuring out which songs might be woven in there. And Alex, because he's such a fan of the show, like to a great extent, I just kind of, wanted to get out of the way and let the genius be the genius. And he just, he kicked the tires on it a lot. We collaborated with the dance department, and what you see went through several iterations before it got there. And it, inevitably was always going to end with, I guess I'll miss the man. Because it was such a powerful statement, and Alex got this really beautiful email from Stephen Schwartz himself complimenting him on it, which was just really kind of mind-blowing. And my job is to support the process and to help book the studio musicians and pull it all together and to have all the pieces there so that we can create this.
Yeah, and for me, there's two things. Number one, in terms of how it's put together, the fact that Stephen Levinson and Joel Fields had such a clear idea of that medley existing at the end, and I knew that they wanted to use, like, essentially, as Stephen said, use "I'll Miss the Man" at the end, and have a piece of a Simple Joys. That was important to them, but it was the weaving in and out of those songs that was the real joyride for me. In terms of like how to make it all smooth, how to make it all feel organic, how to make it all feel of a piece, but also find the underscoring moments from Pippin that felt like it served the story. So there's that really cool part where something feels sinister, and I wanted to use that really, which is one of my favorite parts of Gore. Once again, that's like instant film scoring for me. So having those little bits of information to be able to draw from and use, but was so much fun for me. And really, nothing in my world happens without Gizicki, because like he has to make sure it can all happen. As he mentioned, we'll have to have the rights for it, but then finding out when we're going to record it, how we're going to record it, how many seconds of Pippin can we use? Like, are we using too much? Do we have the ability to use this? Do we have the ability to use that? So, like, we just were on the phone all the time. There were a series of emails between us. Like, I feel like I couldn't make a single move about anything without checking with him first. So it was really nice to have him in my corner, because he was always so supportive about really allowing me to feel free in what it is that I did, even if there were times that I didn't feel free because we were bound by time constraints or budget constraints or usage of rights constraints. But it was great to know that I had him in my corner to really not ever feel like I couldn't do something, even if, like, technically I quote unquote couldn't. I felt like I could. There was always some way around it. There was always some way to still be creative and still feel unhindered, and to be able to serve the show as best as possible.
Thank you. And he and I, Alex and I, clicked right away. We met for the first time. We had a brunch when he was visiting LA, and it just became clear that we both were coming to this project with the same goal, which was to get it right. And we had a sense of responsibility to get it right by Bob and Gwen. And with Tommy and Joel and Stephen at the helm, it's about, like, the vision was unified, and our job is to present that vision musically. And and then, because we're on a television budget with a television schedule, and at a certain point in production, all the episodes start to like land on top of each other like a big club sandwich. And
like you're doing post on episode 7. Sorry, you're doing post on episode 1 while you're still filming episode 6, and trying to record for episode 4. It's crazy.
Yeah. And so we had to split. Okay, we can't be in 2 places at once or 3 places at once. So Alex, you go here, and I'm going to go there. And because the budget was a bit tight, some of my favorite moments of the show where I would get this sheepish text or phone message from Alex, Gizicki, like, yes, like, can I do this? Can I have this? Can I have this extra toy for my, in the sandbox? And, I never wanted to say no. I always wanted to make it work somehow. There was, we went back in to re-record parts of Big Spender because when we, on the first pass, it just it was lacking that certain something, Mm-hmm. And I Alex presented a good case, and and we both listened to it like, hey, it's right. He's totally right. Like, we should redo this to make this the best thing that we can possibly make. And I just, borrowed money from here to there to make sure that we could get it right.
Well, and you talk about getting it right, especially because in a certain respect, you have to do two things. You have to make the show, both something that's relatable for people who aren't familiar with this world and this music, and also, there's going to be the theater people like yours truly who are watching this and go, I know you better not screw that up or anything like that. So I guess what I'm wondering is, how did you go about threading that needle? I mean, you wanted to be respectful to the legacy, but you also wanted to be, as welcoming to an outside audience as possible. So was that something you kept in mind as you went through this?
Speaking for myself, and I know I just have such a deep love for the medium. And I know Gizicki does as well. And I'm talking specifically about the medium of Broadway and these iconic songs. And as you said, it was very important for us to pay homage to these iconic songs that were groundbreaking and trailblazing at the time, and then with the songs we still sing now today. I think for us, just when you really are passionate about something, I think that's going to come through in the work. And I think we just so deeply love the project, and we deeply love these shows that we were celebrating, and the people who were responsible for creating these shows. So I like to think that the fact that we have a respect for the art form, and the fact that we have a love for storytelling, and all that plays into it. I'd like to think that it is that stuff that's part of our DNA, of Steve's and I's DNA, that allowed the songs to really feel like they were authentic and still have that special mojo that you're looking for, so that we can really celebrate these songs and make them feel and sound like those songs that give us those special feels when we put them on and listen to them on our headphones or on our record player or whatever. So I think it's our deference to that material which allowed us to do our job.
Yeah, and there's a line too that we just discussed a lot, all of us on the production, which is, being authentic. But these are no one will ever be Liza Minnelli. There's only one Liza Minnelli. So how and Alex worked with Kelly in the studio for quite some time to calibrate her performance to find that zone where she was you believed she was Liza, but it wasn't a parody. It wasn't a Saturday Night Live skit, and it wasn't like an imitation. But it felt like Kelly sort of there's a mixture of Kelly and Liza in that performance, both performance-wise on screen and the vocal, and that sort of carries through the show. Is trying to find a way of being authentic, but you can't be too authentic because those are not the same people. And
you have that with both. Not just with Kelly, but with also Bianca playing Cheetah, and with Michelle playing Gwen. I mean, these are so how do you work with those? I mean, Alex, I assume you spend a lot of time in the studio with them working on this. So how do you work with them to make it both authentic and yet not just simply an imitation?
I think for me, I hear those recordings of those icons that you just mentioned, whether it's Liza, Joe Gray, or Cheetah, and there's something about their performances that we're drawn into. And whatever that special something was, I just tried to have our actors try to add that spice, that special sauce into what it was the performance was. For example, Liza sings like there's no tomorrow, she sings as if this is the last night on earth she'll ever get to sing a song, and you feel that her leaving it all on the floor. So it was important for me to have Kelly just have that, the Zero F's version of singing the song, and to have that kind of megawatt performance. You love Joel Gray's quirkiness when he's singing Willkommen, and you probably think yourself, he probably never sang it the same way twice. He probably had some weird little thing to put on this word, and some weird little a mischievous grin as he sang that word. When we were in the studio with Ethan, it was about trying to have him just feel as outlandish as possible, to feel as quirky as possible. So really in that, I think there will be some truth, because whatever the truth was for Cheetah when she was performing, we have to find a similar truth for our actors so that they can then, as Steve used the word, try to be authentic in their own way, authentic to the material, authentic to the story, and therefore we will be able to say to ourselves, oh yeah, that has the spirit of what that actor was portraying. So therefore, we feel like we're, watching someone essentially play a role.
Yeah, and so being such theater people and being so enmeshed in the theater, knowing this history, going through this process of researching it and preparing it, was there any song from this catalog that surprised you, or some hidden gem that came out of nowhere and you're like, ooh, I didn't even think about this song this way before? Did you guys have a moment like that?
Steve?
I would say several. I mean, Pippin sort of passed me by at the time. It was just not a show that I'm familiar with all of Bob's material except for Pippin. For some reason, that just didn't really hit my radar. So discovering that show was just a revelation, So for me, that's the one that really stood out, because there was one day on set that might have been my favorite day of all days. We had the larger Pippin cast that you see in the rehearsal sequences singing Glory. And we were just hanging out backstage, and we had to warm them up for the Glory scene because that was recorded live on set. And somehow magically that just turned into a Pippin sing-along. And people just came from down the hallway. And by the way, they're all dressed in their 70s Pippin garb. And Alex is at the piano, and we just went through song after song after song. We went through the entire libretto of Pippin in a dressing room, and it just felt, it was so incredibly magical and hilarious, with bell bottoms and wigs everywhere.
That is one for the history books for sure.
Yeah, Alex, did you have any that came out of nowhere for you?
Yeah, I wasn't as deeply entrenched into Sweet Charity, and the way Where Am I Going really fit in and was the centerpiece of episode 5. I was really, I loved how that happened. And I just love how they were able to weave that into the story and have it be her performing a song that was in a show that she was in, about like how it was going to apply to her life and how it applied to our story. It was all just really, it just felt perfect. So it was nice to be able to do that, and to, it was nice to be able to do the Bye Bye Life of it as well. I loved how that was, how we were able to kind of dig in and play that style, especially after having done these episodes where we're playing classical, quote unquote, musical theater, like doing stuff from Damn Yankees. The fact that we have a series that does both Damn Yankees and Bye Bye Life from All That Jazz, like, sign me up. That's what I want to be doing my whole life.
And Where Am I Going is so special because that was another moment where we recorded live on set. That's Michelle live. And there's such a great vulnerability to that performance that is just, her performance across the board in the show was just phenomenal. I remember being on set when she shot the Nowadays scene at the piano with our versions of Candor and Ebb.
Mm-hmm.
And I texted, my fiance at the time said, I think I just watched Michelle win an Emmy. It was so powerful. Everybody in the room was just silent. The whole set was silent, and jaws were on the floor. It was just so incredibly powerful.
It really was.
Well, the whole series just really is. As a theater fan, I could literally sit and talk to you guys just about Broadway all day long. But congratulations, Stephen, Alex, both on the Emmy nominations and everything with Fosse Verdon. Everybody go to goldderby.com, make your predictions for the Emmys, and we'll have more chats with more Emmy contenders throughout the season. Gentlemen, a pleasure to talk to both of you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Likewise. Thank you so much. It's great.